Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I'm Tudor Dixon, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today, I'm joined by one of Philadelphia's finest, Rich Zeoli. But before we get to him, I want to talk to you about something else. I want to talk to you about EnviroCleanse. If all home air purifiers are the same, then I ask you, why did the U.S. Department of Defense select EnviroCleanse to protect and purify the air on board our Navy ships? Listen, I will tell you, I personally have this in my home. And the reason I have this in my home is because I have a kid that has terrible allergies, really bad allergies. She's miserable if she does not get a good night's sleep. And you know, if you have one miserable kid, you have all of your kids miserable. And I have 4, so I don't want to have 4 miserable kids. We have EnviroCleanse, and it has been amazing. It's patented earth mineral technology, hospital grade HEPA filter. It destroys cold flu viruses. It destroys COVID. It takes care of allergies, mold, and even more. Again, this is hospital grade technology. It's so powerful. You remember after COVID, when all of these folks were saying, we've got to upgrade our schools, we've got to upgrade our hospitals. You can do this in your very own home for much less money. This is what's used on our Navy fleet of ships. It's in thousands of classrooms. The EnviroCleanse promise is far fewer colds and allergies and far better sleep. And look, we're going into school. School is about to start. I know you don't want to hear that, but maybe some moms do want to hear that actually, but school is about to start and you are going to have those kids in there with colds. So you want to make sure that you have good air quality at home. Free air quality monitor comes with this. Test the difference in your own home. Visit ekpure.com and use the code Dixon for 10% off. Look, you guys are going to get money off of this. You hear about schools doing this. You hear about hospitals doing this. Do it in your own home. EnviroCleanse Home Purification Unit and fast and a free air quality monitor plus fast free shipping. That's $150 savings. That's ekpure.com, code Dixon, D-I-X-O-N, ekpure.com, code Dixon. Please check it out. But now we want to get to Rich. Rich is such an awesome guy. So I want to tell you before I bring Rich in, we were on a show with Jimmy Fallon at Fox, a Saturday night show. It's a funny show, but it's like that weird moment where you get into the green room and you're like, who is this person that I'm going to be with? And we just hit it off. It was so much fun being in the green room. And then Jimmy comes in. So if you don't know a lot about behind the scenes on a Jimmy show, he comes in with this like modern boombox and he makes you listen to music really loud. He comes in, he's like, I want to make sure it's not awkward in here. We were like, it's so not awkward in here. It's really fun. And it was so fun that I wanted Rich to come on the podcast. So thank you, Rich, for being here with me today.
Well, Tudor, thank you for having me. We did have a blast back there. In fact, we were like, Jimmy, we're good. We got this. So you go do your thing, put on your fancy blazer and shine those boots. We're having more fun in the green room than we will on the show.
Exactly. So I was just telling you that I just got back from Aspen. We actually had a meeting out there, a political meeting out there, people that were much wealthier than me. So I feel like I'm back in my normal environment with, you know, my regular Michiganders. You're from Philadelphia. You do a talk radio show every weekday, 3 to 7 p.m. That's a long time to be on talk radio. How do you do that?
Well, I use a combination of the cocaine they found at the White House that they never identified, which I believe they gave to Biden's dogs, which is why the dogs keep biting everybody.
Oh, yeah, they're biting everybody.
It's like Cocaine Bear, Cocaine White House dogs, Tudor. It's going to be a hit movie. I can't wait to see it. I mean, there's so much to talk about these days, and I love doing Afternoon Drive because every time I go on the air, there's breaking news. You know, in the summertime, you should think things would slow down. But I mean, I went on the air yesterday right after the Hunter Biden plea deal blew up. So there's always something fun to talk about. And I'm psyched to be here with you because as you know, I'm a big admirer of yours. I want you to continue in politics, but I also know you're not insane. So I think you might have found your niche behind the microphone and the camera, certainly the camera for sure.
Well, I mean, people generally say if you run for office, there's a chance you are insane. So I don't know. We'll leave that out. That's still out for judge and jury. But I think that you might be onto something with the dogs. I don't know that it was an accidental thing, though, because I think they are definitely trying to drive people away from the media narrative that is Hunter Biden. They're like, you know what? He's done a lot of cocaine. Let's have the dogs start biting people. We've got to distract from this. We can no longer. But I'm going to say something that is not a popular opinion.
Okay.
I also feel like that is what is going on with these UFO whistleblowers. I don't believe this. I think these guys seem very disingenuous. They're like, oh, yeah. Oh, no, they're not human. They're alien. I'm like, come on. I mean, and then I heard this guy this morning, I got to say, one of the whistleblowers, he was on one of the major stations this morning and they were asking him about this. And they were like, how is it that this hasn't been with commercial pilots? He's like, no, the commercial pilots see it all the time, but there's a difference. They want to keep it secret, whereas the government wants to tell you the truth. I'm like, no one's ever said that.
In the history of mankind, humankind, excuse me, I don't want Justin Trudeau to yell at me. No one's ever said that before, right? No, I agree with you 100%. Listening to these guys yesterday reminded me of that YouTube clip, Alien Autopsy, where they go in and they're performing the autopsy on the alien bodies they recovered at Roswell. And they go, look how real this is. Wow, look at this green ooze coming out of them. And the audience, my audience in Philly said the same thing yesterday. Like, come on, this is completely a distraction. They picked the day. They actually picked the day to do this UFO whistleblower thing on the day that the Hunter Biden's in court, because there was a chance it might blow up and they wanted everybody to be distracted from it. So I'm with you on this. Maybe we're the conspiracy ones now, but if suddenly now the government's prepared to tell us about aliens after they've been telling us that they were not real for 50 years and telling us we were conspiracy nuts to believe that, I'm sorry, Tudor, but with everything they've been lying about at this point, they don't get the right. No one gets the right to call us conspiracy theorists anymore. No one. Wuhan lab in China, all of it, nothing.
Right, but here's the thing. If you work in government, you have a certain security clearance. Everybody has looked into your background. You are, okay, this person is definitely going to be okay with keeping this secret, and they've signed their life away that they're going to keep this secret. If you work for United or Delta, that doesn't happen.
No, and you want to write a book. You see an alien, the first thing you're doing is taking a selfie with it, like a spaceship. Right. You're going to look at this and then posting it to your Instagram the minute you get a Wi-Fi connection. And then you're going, I'm going to be the famous pilot who just saw a UFO. And
I mean, I'm old enough to remember the pilots that were totally wasted on the plane. And I'm like, those guys for sure would have said, we had to drink. We had to get totally wasted as we were piloting this plane because we've seen too many green men. Yeah, the drunk pilots would have been mooning the aliens, you know what I mean? from the cockpit, just being like, "What's up? Welcome to Earth." Right. So I totally believe that this is to distract from Hunter Biden, but I'm also kind of irritated with Republicans. Why are you not? I mean, why would they agree to do this on this day? Doesn't it make you suspicious of everyone? And I have to say, I have been in dinners and meetings in Washington, D.C., where I've said to myself, there really is truth to the fact that it's a uniparty. Yeah.
It is. I think yesterday was very evident of that, Tudor. I think you're exactly right. Because I said the same thing. I said, oh, wait, who's in charge of the House of Representatives right now? Why? At first, I thought it was a Senate hearing. And I thought, all right, well, that makes sense. Chuck Schumer's trying to do a little thing. I said, wait, this is the House of Representatives? Isn't that our side of the aisle? What's happening here? Why are we talking about UFOs? Is there nothing else to talk about? And I could understand if the theme of it really was, hey, look, no aliens. It's just Chinese technology has surpassed us. So it's got to be a wake-up call. But no, they went alien. They went little green men on us. And I thought, come on. And some of these, the members of the committee were spending 5 minutes grilling these people about this. And all I kept thinking the entire time was, you know that you're giving the corporate media so much to talk about tonight. That's not Hunter Biden. That's not our corrupt Department of Justice. What are you doing here?
Right. I mean, I would rather have them talk about China's influence in outer space, the amount of money China has spent to control outer space and the danger there. But no one talks about that. They're like, oh, there could be some other person out in outer space. There's other beings. I'm worried about who we know is out there, and we don't talk about that, which I find very suspect. And I know that everybody made fun of Donald Trump for Space Force, and there was the show, which I actually thought was delightful. I don't know if you saw the Netflix show.
I did not.
Force. It was hilarious.
I'll add it to my list. All right, good.
Yes. I'm now giving out suggestions on things to watch. But there is really a truth behind the fact that we have to control outer space. People don't realize that everything you do, your phone, your car, your GPS, everything you do is controlled by what happens in outer space. So the war that China can launch against us is just to shut us off.
It's so true. And the tracking of everybody, it was actually a plot line in the new Mission Impossible movie. I don't know if you had a chance to see that. I was recovering from surgery, so I got a chance to see a lot of movies. Sound of Freedom was great. Oppenheimer was great. Haven't made it to Barbie because I'm a man. So there's that. And I love America.
I did see Barbie.
Right. And I don't want to spend 2 hours being told how much I'm terrible. So I haven't got there yet. But Mission Impossible, that was actually a plot line. It was artificial intelligence, and that it could take over the satellites and do whatever it wants to us. So yeah, no, it's legit to be able to protect the space, because that is the frontier that everybody's investing in. And we've only just begun that technology on it. The satellite technology is a little bit scary. We have to realize too that China's not our friend. The day that they announced those hypersonic missiles that they launched, or the hypersonic rockets, I thought, how was it possible that they were developing these the entire time and we didn't know about it, apparently? I mean, that just blows my mind.
And what happens, this is kind of terrifying, but what people don't realize is that you talk about these hypersonics and EMPs, and this shuts down the country.
Right.
I mean, your car stops. It's everything. An electromagnetic pulse stops everything. You have no lights, you have no refrigeration, you have no vehicle, you have no phone, you have nothing. And so now all those people that you know that are preppers, I have a prepper in my family, I'm going to admit, made fun of the prepping. Not so much now. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should get closer to her.
Yeah, during COVID, before COVID, I used to make fun of preppers all the time. Like, come on, end of the world, stop. And then during COVID, when I couldn't find a roll of toilet paper, I thought, all right, you people are onto something here. So I started loading up on cans of soup. And then the ramen that we ate in college, or some of us still eat because we're not going to country club brunches, you got to stock up on that too. But I think you're right. An EMP is no joke. And I was thinking, when the Chinese spy balloon was hovering over our airspace for days and days and days, I kept thinking the same thing. What if this is a test run for an EMP? Shutting down the world, and we'd have bigger problems than just our kids complaining about not having Wi-Fi. We would have major issues if that were to occur. And I think, Tudor, our electric grid is just a prime target. You know, it seems so vulnerable. It seems like it's just sitting there like a sitting duck. And of course, this administration is more concerned with building wind turbines that kill whales and dolphins than it is about securing our energy protection and our future. So that really concerns me too.
Right now, you're seeing articles coming out saying actually maybe solar panels are actually emitting these, greenhouse gases or whatever it is. Like nothing is going to be perfect.
Right.
We are humans living in the world, but there are other people that want to control the population, like Kamala Harris. I love how they're like, oh, that's not what she meant. She meant pollution. I'm like, really? How many times in the last 10 years have you heard Dems use the word pollution? It's not a word anymore. It's just that one was taken out of, and it's like, we have to be careful of climate change and the environment. I'm like, nice try. None of us have heard you say pollution in a really long time. We know what she meant.
Do we have a Venn diagram for that? I'm actually convinced that every time she says Venn diagram, it's just to mind control us. And one day we're all going to be the Manchurian Candidate when she says it for the 785,000th time, Venn diagram. And we're just going to go, okay, now, Kamala, we will follow you. It's just every day with her, and that and the laugh, of course. But you and I had agreed on something when we were on Jimmy's show together. We agreed on a lot. But that is that the Democrats, they've got a problem here in Joe Biden, and they have a bigger problem in Kamala Harris. No question about it.
They have a problem in Joe Biden for, the obvious reasons, and the obvious reasons that we're actually seeing with several people that are in government now. And that is that these folks that are aging, but anybody with health issues is real. We've seen this with Fetterman. It's very sad. Mm-hmm. He had a stroke. It's seriously compromised his ability to communicate. And therefore we don't know what is going in. We know what's coming out. We don't know what's actually going in and being understood. I think we're feeling like we're in the same situation with Joe Biden. We saw what happened with Mitch McConnell. We're not sure what exactly happened with Mitch McConnell. These are people who have either had catastrophic health problems or they're elderly. We're in a situation where we're concerned one part of the Joe Biden situation is his health, his stability. The other question that we have right now is he compromised? Are we compromised because of him? I should say that. Is the United States compromised because of him? And now we have this Hunter Biden trial that we're looking at, and suddenly they're going, yeah, I don't know that this plea. I mean, I think it's fantastic that the judge came out and said, I don't know that we can actually have this. But I think they kind of screwed themselves in this situation, because you've got this situation where the phone call comes in. You know, this phone call where they say, you know, this is the Hunter Biden's attorney, or no, it was the prosecutor. Oh, this is the prosecutor. We want to make sure that this is taken off the record. And then they traced the phone call to his attorney's office, and the attorney's office is like, oh, we would never try to misrepresent ourselves. But that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and that's the Department of Justice doing that. And think about the United States Department of Justice trying to get involved here in protecting. My whole theory on this is that this is all about protecting the president. It's not about protecting Hunter. And he's such a dope, and his legal team, they're so dopey too, that the minute that I think the judge kind of played a Jedi mind trick here when she said, so Hunter could still be charged with failure to register as a foreign agent, right? And they said, yes, Your Honor. And that's when the whole thing fell apart, because I think that dummy probably never read his plea agreement, and his attorneys, they probably didn't read it. And the Justice Department, all they want is immunity from anything that's related to how Hunter made his money. They don't care about what happens to Hunter in any other area of his life. They just want to protect how Hunter made his money, because it leads directly back to the big guy, the president. I think this is an elaborate cover-up by the Justice Department, Tudor. I think that the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's legal team, they're co-conspirators on this whole thing. And what they tried to do here was, and this is why those IRS whistleblowers, I mean, thank God the Republicans are in control of the House, because on the days that they're not doing UFO whistleblower hearings, they had actual stuff that mattered, like the IRS whistleblowers who said, you know, if this goes through, we're never going to know the source of his income, how he made his money, where he made his money, and who else profited from this. This plea agreement cannot go through, and it almost did, but this judge was savvy enough. And I also say, thank God, that the House Republicans put out that friend of the court brief, the amicus brief, and said, hey, look, these whistleblowers have told us if you go along with this massive international criminal money laundering scheme is going to be completely covered up. I think the judge was spot on yesterday. I'm so glad she was there. And, you know, we got lucky. We got lucky that that's the judge.
I think it goes deeper than, like you said, deeper than protecting Hunter, deeper than protecting Joe. It's protecting the system in general. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of corruption. And I think whenever there's this much power, there's a lot of corruption. And to be honest, I think that to some extent, this is why the phenomena of Donald Trump coming into office and campaigning in 2016 was so attractive to people, because they were like, wow, this is somebody who's never been involved in politics. What could happen and what could be exposed? I think even Donald Trump got into office and went, man, this goes really deep. I mean, the number of agencies within agencies, hidden deep, employees everywhere, people who have been there for 25, 40 years, people who nobody knows what they're doing. When people say drain the swamp, nobody can even see the whole swamp. Nobody has eyes on the entire government and what it's doing. And so we're seeing cracks in that. We're seeing cracks because it was at the highest level, having the vice president of the United States make millions of dollars. But how does Nancy Pelosi live the way she lives? I mean, you could look at both sides and say, these people have an extraordinary amount of money. They've been in office for decades. Joe Biden is the perfect example of someone who's been in office his entire life. And people can tell me until they're blue in the face, he had a great book deal. Nobody cares about books that much. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's no one that is spending that much money on books that he can suddenly have all these homes, that his son can go through this amount of cocaine. It's expensive.
Not on the streets of Philly, but then it's fentanyl. So there's that. You're 100% right. And you say it goes deeper. I mean, I think the administrative state, we call it the deep state, but to me, it's the administrative state. And you probably saw a couple weeks ago, the New York Times had this piece and, the panic piece of Donald Trump wants to vastly expand the powers of the presidency. And it's, and if you read the article, which most people on social media don't, they just go with scary headlines, you realize that there are a lot of conservative and libertarian groups working together, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, trying to rein in the administrative state and give the power back to the president, because the president's elected, he's accountable to the people. And here you have this unaccountable bureaucracy that makes laws. I mean, it makes laws under the guise of promulgating rules. When they tried to ban gas stoves, that was not a vast right-wing conspiracy, Tudor, as you know. They were literally going to try to say through the Consumer Product Safety Commission, we are banning gas stoves. And they believe they have the legal authority to do it. They probably do. And if Congress doesn't like it, Congress has to pass a law to undo a rule of the executive, a rule that's either a ban or carries jail time or fines. I mean, that's not how this system's supposed to work. I may not be an expert in government, but I read House Mouse, Senate Cat enough times to know, and I saw School of Rock to know that Congress makes laws, not the executive branch. And so the real panic here is that somebody's going to get in there, whether it's Trump or somebody else, and recognize this, and then just take a cudgel to the administrative state. And these people are going to lose their power and their ability to make money and their ability to do all these side deals in the military-industrial complex. And the uniparty will suffer. And that is the big, big fear, I think.
So government has become so big that people don't actually know where all of this is coming from. And we see this just on Michigan, on the state, in Michigan on the state level. And I would argue that this has been, obviously this has been going on for years and decades, but it's gotten worse because big education has also removed a lot of the knowledge of how government works from school. Like, we don't have time for that. We don't get tested on that. Conveniently, we don't get tested on that. So we don't get money for that. So we're not going to talk about that. And if you don't know how government works, then you don't know to be mad about it. So I will share a few examples with you in Michigan. As I'm campaigning, we went bear hunting. So I've talked about this before. I'm not a bear hunter, but I got some experience talking to the hunters, and they're like, the DNR has made these rules where if we don't have hunter's orange on and we get fired, or if we get found out and fined for this, then we actually have our concealed carry taken away because you get a misdemeanor. I'm like, well, how do you get a misdemeanor? Because the DNR doesn't make law. They're like, no, it's a rule. I'm like, so that's suddenly now a law? Wait a minute. The lawmakers, the legislature didn't make this law. Yeah, right. I know. We think it sucks so bad. I'm like, why are we standing for this? And that's the thing. The people don't even realize, no. This should not be the way it is. So I got a letter from the health system here a few weeks ago. And a couple months before that, I take my daughter to the doctor's office, and they say, oh, now that your daughter is over, once they turn 12, it was her 11-year-old appointment. Once they turn 12, sorry, she's going to have to sign over you over as a medical proxy if you want to have access to her medical records. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, from 12 to 18, you have no access unless they give it to you, because they get to choose. They get to make their medical decisions. I'm like, what? 12? I said, when did this happen? Yeah, I know. She was like, it's just in the last 4 to 6 weeks. This came down and we now have to have her sign. So she looks at my daughter and she's, let me explain this to you. Mom will have no access to anything you talk to me about unless you want her to. You can sign this over. And she said, but if you don't sign it over to mom, then you will have to make all of your appointments from now on. So what would you like to do? And of course, my daughter, who's just 12, she says, I would like my mom to make my appointments. She goes, but if at any time you want to discuss something with me that you don't want mom to know about, this is exactly how it's described, then you just have to tell me and we'll rip this paper up and mom will have no access to your medical records. Think of how catastrophic this is. She gets in an accident. I don't have access to her medical records. Anything happens to her, I could potentially not have access to my child's medical records. Somebody convinces her to do something crazy, I don't have access. I don't have any ability to control what happens. This is insane. I said to the legislature, how did this happen? They said it must be a rule from HHS. What? How messed up is that?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've heard similar stories from moms. My kids are younger. I've 8, 6, and 3, but I've heard a similar story from a friend of mine. I think a lot of this too is in New Jersey, for example, the king over there, he's suing school districts who have passed, the boards of education who have passed rules that said, listen, if a child identifies as transgender, we're going to let the parents know. And the state of New Jersey is suing those school districts, saying the parents should have no right to know. And, as a parent, I keep thinking, I mean, this is crazy. The transgender thing for kids is a giant red flag for something. And most likely mental illness here. And as a parent, I want to get involved and I want to do whatever I can to help my children. And the state or the medical system, as you're describing, won't even let me know about it. And that's just insane. And we're putting our kids at risk here. I mean, this is really serious. Parents are the ones who need to be able to help out. I remember I couldn't get an aspirin as a kid when I was 16 without my parents signing a form. You remember those days. And at the very same time, they're doing all this because I think it's really comes down to the fact they want kids to be able to get abortions and what do they call it? They call it gender affirming care, right? Without our knowledge. And at the very same time, they'll turn around and say, oh, and by the way, children should not be able to have a firearm until they're 21. Yeah, because their brains are not fully developed yet, so they shouldn't be able to have a gun until they're 21. So I mean, they're all over the place, these people.
But I mean, I think we should stop calling it what they want to call it. The truth is it's sterilizing kids and removing body parts. Yeah, and if you say it the way it really is, people are like, wait, what? You're going to make it so that these kids can never have a family of their own. So they make a decision when they're young. And I think that the key, what you said is key. If this is what's going on in this child's mind, mom and dad need to know, just like they would need to know if they were not eating well, if they had an eating disorder, if they were cutting themselves, if there were anything going on, if suddenly their grades dropped off in school and it was an indicator that something had happened, mom and dad would be the ones you would go to, right? But now mom and dad are demonized. So that's the new thing, is to say, we don't tell mom and dad because we assume mom and dad must be the problem.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be good to the kid.
You're right. And because with the left today, it's not even about tolerance, it's about compliance. So the debate over this idea that maybe if a child is saying they're transgender, that it is mental illness and we need to do something here, or it's social pressure, or it's something else, but it's actually not what the left says it is. But the left wants everybody to believe, no. If a kid says they're transgender, they're transgender. Start with the mutilation, start with the life-altering drugs that have not been FDA approved for this, by the way. Do it now. And there's no debate over this, because the minute you allow debate, their whole facade crumbles here. So they won't allow the debate to occur. They want everybody to just be compliant and accept what they say. If a 12-year-old girl says she's a boy, well, then she's a boy. And that's just it. And you can't debate it. You can't have a conversation about it. And if you try to intervene and try to stop her from doing whatever she wants to do, we may even take your kids away from you. I mean, it's insane.
It's funny to me because you say about taking your kids away from you. And I've heard so many people say once somebody's an adult, whatever, they can do whatever they want. And I feel the same way. But now we are seeing the situation where you have these, I guess we would consider them trans men who have gotten pregnant, they have a baby, and then they are bragging that they are chest feeding the baby, or the husband, the mom. I'm so confused. Okay, so the woman has, or the trans man has the baby, and then the trans woman starts breastfeeding, but that woman was originally born a man, right? And so now they're breastfeeding something. What is this? What is this coming from? Where is it coming from? And what chemicals is it made up of? Because I can't take a Tylenol or an Advil now. Well, they're just, so when I was pregnant, they said you can't take Advil. It's so dangerous, so harmful to the baby. Now they're saying there's a chance that they're linking Tylenol usage to potentially autism or something like that. They have had some records that have shown this could potentially be happening. So now you're looking at this and you're going, okay, moms who are pregnant should not be taking these average over-the-counter medications. And yet these people are taking testosterone, they're taking, so the person who's pregnant is taking testosterone, growing a beard, all of these things. And then the baby comes out, handed over to the other person. And that person is doing something to their body to create some sort of chest milk. And we don't know what it is. I don't even know if we can call chest fluid. And this baby is, I know that's so gross. Like your face just now was, I wish.
But I'm just picturing someone with man boobs and just oozing some sort of fluid out of the man's ear. And I'm just getting a terrible.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know that breast milk in and of itself, I don't know that people are always like, oh, yay. I think it's like a private thing, right? But men having chest milk, why is nobody going, what is happening? Why would you let this baby drink whatever this is? I mean, why? Yeah. It just blows my mind.
Tudor, 2 of our children came to us through adoption, and it's been the greatest joy of our life. And then we have a 3rd baby, our bio baby surprise, baby Reagan, who was just, after we went through Patrick and Claire's adoption, and then we get Reagan, wow, So we're very blessed. We're very lucky. But with with Patrick and Claire, we had to bottle feed them because Bridget's not producing milk because she wasn't pregnant, and so we had to bottle feed our 2 babies, and that was fine. I mean, we did it. Although with my son, it was very difficult because it turns out he had a milk protein intolerance. So we had to go through all these different kinds of formula until eventually we found the one that is actually so expensive. It's made of liquid diamonds. They just melt it down. And
right.
That's what the child drinks, So, so this is insane to me that we would be risking children under the guise of political correctness. But that's it with the left. I mean, again, you can't debate that. The party of science will not allow you to have a conversation that says, hey, maybe you're doing something to harm the child here, because they'd rather capitulate to this such a small minority. I mean, that's the mind blowing part of this. We're talking about such a small minority of people. When James Carville came out and said the Democrat Party today has become the party of the faculty lounges and the coastal elites, he wasn't kidding, because this is such a small group of people. We're bending over backwards for this utterly small minority, no pun intended, and with what consequences here?
I'll tell you what consequences. I strongly believe this. This is a distraction from what is really happening, from the people who are coming across the border, from the extent to which China owns us right now. The largest navy in the world, moving closer to and closer to us with bases, zooming over Taiwan, their ultimate plan, a world war. We're all looking the other way because we're like, I don't know. What are the pronouns again? And I don't want to offend this. We're like abused people where everybody is afraid. Everybody is concerned about talking to one another. You don't see the interactions you used to have with people because we're all afraid of offending people. And it's been created I believe it's been created by social media that is largely influenced by our enemies who are like, watch this. Let the puppet master out there, like, watch this. Let me make them all freak out about this one. And meanwhile, we have a national security crisis. I mean, we are going kind of long. I could talk to you forever, but I will point out that we have a national security crisis with China. We have driven Saudi Arabia into the arms of China, Russia, Iran. And I say that because we decided to get rid of energy independence when Joe Biden took office. He decided that for us. That put us into a situation where we're completely dependent upon Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was like, yeah, screw you. Like, guess what? You fist bumped me? No, you're out. I'm going to go hang out with Putin. I'm going to hang out with Xi, and you guys can just suffer without energy independence. Our national security is hanging by a thread, and we're like, is it chest feeding or breastfeeding?
Yeah.
I just want to get it right.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. I mean, we what's happening in Ukraine, for example, the fact that we are in a proxy war with Russia. And I walked out of Oppenheimer thinking to myself, my God, we're in this proxy war with Russia, a nuclear power here, as this new alliance between Russia and China forms. At the same time, we've made Putin a very rich man with our war on energy in the United States of America. And Congress, again, is talking about UFOs. How about having a debate debate about our role in Ukraine, where this goes, what the end game is here. Because the last time I checked, Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress declares war, not the president. And I really do believe here, because Joe Biden is so compromised by Ukraine and compromised by China, that this is a big part of the reason why we're there. And they impeached Donald Trump over a phone call. Biden was bragging about getting the prosecutor of Ukraine fired. Tudor, why would the American vice president give a damn about a prosecutor in a country that was corrupt before that prosecutor, corrupt after that prosecutor, and is still corrupt today, unless it had something to do with him? There's nothing about U.S. policy that says we would give a darn about a prosecutor in Ukraine. Joe Biden is so compromised, and my God, it's like we're all on the precipice of this. Meanwhile, the uniparty's happy, the military-industrial complex is happy, and we're preppers, and we're prepping, and we're the crazy ones.
Right. I mean, we all 3-4 years ago, everybody's like, Ukraine is the most corrupt country on the planet. Now everybody's like, send Ukraine billions of dollars. Why are we so sad about it? We've got to bail them out. And we're like, I don't know if you've noticed our supplies here on defending the United States a little low. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be in the situation where China's like, yeah, Putin, hit him again. And then we're like, oh, don't worry, we'll send more. And Xi's like, send more, because I know how much you have, and it's not that much. I just want to make sure I deplete you as much as I possibly can. And then I take Taiwan, and Taiwan is the gateway to the world because it creates everything that goes into your cars, into your cell phone. All of the ways that we connect are right there in Taiwan. I memean, think about the danger here. And Xi's like, Putin, push the button again, because I think they need to send more arms. You have a few more billion sent over. Yeah. And there you've got Biden he is completely compromised. And he is like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Our Air Force pilots are all seeing these UFOs, but the commercial pilots, they're just like mom about it. Super quiet.
The most trustworthy people. Oh, and look, I found another $6 billion in my couch cushion. So let me send it over to Ukraine.
Right. Well, he was, making straw paintings. Whatever. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Thank you. I love through a straw is, truly the Pablo Picasso of our time. Am I right?
Hunter Biden can do it. And then I think there was like a famous elephant at a zoo that also was able to make these paintings. It's something very special. The elephant, I think, was actually able to create real images. Hunters are just like the same thing that my 10-year-old would do. They're worth
your 10-year-old won't get $500,000 for it and a visit to the White House at a presidential commission if somebody buys it.
Look, they're worth millions because he is blowing through the same straw all his drugs go through. And so people just scrape the paint off. That's how we move drugs across the country.
You figured it out.
Hunter Biden's bubble paintings.
You figured it all out. You cracked the code, Tudor.
Cracked the code. I see what you did there. Rich Zeoli, thank you so much for being on. Make sure you catch him 3 to 7 p.m. on Philadelphia's Talk Radio, 1210 WPHT. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
It was fun. And before you go, I want to tell you about something. Consumer Tax Advocate. Look, I know you all did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your businesses through the pandemic. It was hard. I was there with you. And now you're doing the tough thing, because now doing the tough thing, you could qualify for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. Listen, guys, this is not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. The program is complicated, but nobody knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get with you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans. Even if you had an increase in your sales, you did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. Again, that's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Make sure you check them out. And thanks so much for joining me today on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. As always, for this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com. You can subscribe right there or go to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us the next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.